Are you a parent like me who finds back to school super stressful? Getting the kids ready, getting yourself ready, routines, all of that. If so, today's podcast will give you tips and strategies to manage that transition. We'll also get into the weeds about things like riding the bus or not riding the bus, devices, and other family pertinent issues. Do you ever feel stuck? The alarm goes off and you think, is this really my life? Do you wish you could douse your relationships or your career or even your business with rocket fuel and throw a match on it? End the blah once and for all. They either launch or they burn up and you get to start over. I've been there and I see you. I'm Ben Walters, an entrepreneur, pastor, coach, and consultant. If you're ready to get unstuck and ignite your super pumped life or business, I'll give you the rocket fuel and the match. All you have to do is light it. Welcome to the Super Pump Podcast. It is August. I'm your host, Ben Walters. And August for many folks means two things. One is football, which I love. And the second is back to school. And so on that second point, I have a special guest, Kristen Walters, who is a licensed school psychologist, to help our families during this transition back to school. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. And thank you for that very nice introduction.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background working with kids. You've done that for quite a while and at kind of all levels. Just share a little bit about what you've done.
Sure. So I've worked with kids, high school, middle school, elementary school, and preschool. So I've kind of covered the whole range.
Wow. And you've also done that in Massachusetts and Springfield, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio.
Definitely.
And now currently in Cincinnati, Ohio. Is that right?
Definitely. Yes.
Okay, great. So talk a little bit about August and just the stresses that families feel this time of year and kind of how, yeah.
I think there's a lot of stress, no matter how old the kids are. And that is on the part of the kids and the parents. I think that for parents, it's, gearing up and getting ready for new school year and new schedules and all of that kind of thing. And for the kids, the same thing, new friends and, learning new things and all of that kind of thing. So there's a lot of stress and unknowns.
Sure. Well, let's unpack this a little bit from the littlest boys and girls all the way up to maybe the kids who are perhaps even going off to college, because you've also experienced that as a parent. So let's talk about the family that's about to send their precious, and maybe it's their oldest, for the first time to actual kindergarten or first grade, full day school. Talk a little bit about that transition for those families.
Definitely. So I think that there's a lot of, prep that parents tend to do and can do that can really help both the kids and the parents. This includes the school shopping, maybe, picking out a new backpack or, some special outfits to wear or some new school shoes. And it can also
does that help the child to have a special outfit or a new pair of shoes?
I think so. Definitely. I really think that that's important and it can really be helpful and get them excited about it.
And psychologically, is that kind of laying the groundwork that something different is coming? Because if you're a kid, it just seems like you play all summer. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, back to school. So
I know. I can remember as a kid myself, having fun all summer, maybe sleeping in and playing. And then all of a sudden the night before the first night of school, laying in bed thinking like, there is no way I can do this. I cannot get up and go to school and, face all of that. So it's a lot for kids.
Wow. So with that, how do you prepare them besides getting them a new outfit and maybe a new pair of shoes? But psychologically, are there changes to routine as we approach the beginning of school, or maybe some families have already started school? So talk a little bit about structure and kind of laying the foundation for success on that.
I think that, yes, getting into maybe going to bed a little bit earlier and getting up a little bit earlier, leading up to the start of school can help. I also think, though, there are many kids that still are going to have trouble falling asleep before the first night of school. And that's okay too. You're going to fall asleep and you're going to be okay. And I think that there are little things that you can also do. Maybe you go to the school and play on the playground and get the lay of the land, and that kind of thing can be really helpful leading up to school starting. And another thing that I think can be really helpful is on the new backpack or the old backpack, whatever you're using, laminate, or if you can laminate or put in a Ziploc bag, the child's name, their grade, their teacher, maybe your name and phone number on the back. That way, the first few days of school can be really busy with all kinds of stuff going on. And it's very rare for kids to not know where they're going and not be directed correctly. But if there is a question, boom, it's right there in the backpack. We know exactly which room that kid is meant to go to.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of kids, it's just so overwhelming, all these people and new building and all that. So even though they may be very articulate at home with their parents, it's sometimes hard to articulate what class you're in, or you may forget your teacher's name. I can remember it seemed like a month to remember who's my teacher, what's their name, versus all the other teachers in the school.
Definitely.
So.
I can remember being in first grade and they brought us all to a cafeteria, and we were sitting in the cafeteria and they said, your teacher will come up to the front and they'll call your name and you leave. So they said, Mr. Bow. And so I was thinking, okay, that's a man, I have a man teacher. So I was waiting for a man teacher. So all the kids left
Mr.
and I was
Bow.
still sitting there. And they said, who is your teacher? And I said, Mr. Bow. And they said, oh, actually, it's Miss Debo. And because I'm from the Boston area, that sounded like Mr. Bow to me. And my teacher happened to be from Iowa, and she hated our accents. And so that was my first day of school with her. So that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that is fun.
So it can be
it would have been helpful.
Yeah.
Well, it would have been helpful
to know
have
maybe
that
what the
pinned to you.
teacher looked like. If that nowadays, maybe my mom could have helped me look at that picture or whatever.
Yeah, because a lot of those resources are online, right?
Exactly.
Are there a high percentage of kids that go to school for the first time in kindergarten?
Oh, definitely.
Having never been to that physical property, either on the playground or in the building. So just going to the building in advance of school starting, it would actually be a huge help to your kids, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And if you can't get in, go play on the playground.
Yeah, you kind of walk around.
Well, and I know you had talked about how you could even in that week leading up to school, and you don't want to overwhelm the teacher. Teachers have a lot to do to get their rooms ready and all the meetings and in-services and stuff. But even pop into the office if your kid is really experiencing a lot of anxiety and just ask, could you go down and meet the teacher and see the rooms? And do you find teachers are open to that, or do they frown upon that?
Oh, definitely. No, the teachers, in fact, a lot of teachers even kind of plan some kind of a preschool event, where they'll let you know, I'm going to be here all day, stop in, or I'm having popsicles on the playground, please come by. So I think teachers totally understand that. And even though they're very busy, many of them have already made arrangements, or if you reach out, they would be happy to do that.
Oh, that's nice. Now, what about parental anxiety? Because a lot of parents are maybe even more anxious than the kids about turning their child over to this institution we call a school. So what do you say to maybe the moms or the dads who are struggling to let go of their child? And you see it kind of at drop off. What do you say to them? Talk a little bit about that.
I think the first thing, and as a parent myself, I had, very clingy kids. So, it was no offense, but they were clingy and they were criers.
Sure.
But that's most of the kids, I would say 99.9% of the kids, even if they are losing it, the parent is leaving, this feels so unnatural. How can I leave them? You want to leave when they're happy, not when they're losing it. But actually, counterintuitively, the best thing you can do is quick leave. Because the teachers are so good at getting that kid distracted with something fun, exciting, new. And so very quickly, the tears are gone and the day flies by.
Okay.
And so knowing that we're trained to handle that we expect kids to have a hard time, And in that very few of the kids are even upset longer than they can see their parent kind of walking away.
Okay, that makes sense. What about in terms of parental roles? Sometimes the children are more clingy to one parent or the other. Would you advise that the parent that they're less, I don't want to say less attached to, but maybe there's less of that going on, that they should do the drop off? Would that be
Yes.
helpful
Or
or
the other thing that we found can be really helpful with kids who are struggling with that separation is the bus.
the
And I
bus?
know, a lot of people are like, there is no way I'm doing the bus and all of that. But the bus can be really cool. And especially the younger kids. I mean, you can get them pretty amped up about taking the bus. You can take pictures of school buses, you can read books about school buses. And so by the time school is starting, I mean, these kids are racing to get on that bus. I mean, we will be doing backflips at school all day long. And we'll say, "What's your favorite part of the day?" And they'll say, "The bus." And we're like, I mean, good, but you know what I mean?
Right,
They
right.
love the bus. So if you're having struggle with that, maybe you try the bus because, there might be some anxiety at the bus stop, but then as soon as that bus rolls up, boy, they can be amped to get on it.
Right. Well, and I think that psychologically, the bus, a kid knows when the bus comes, you got to get on. You can't dawdle around and hold the bus up for a 30-second goodbye with mom or dad, right?
Right.
So there's a little bit of an intensity with the bus. But
Yeah.
it also helps, wouldn't you say, in terms of then the child gets to know the fellow bus riders. So they almost, before they even get to school, they already have some familiar faces. And
Yeah.
also the parents often, I know in our neighborhood, the parents would often kind of socialize at the bus stop, even after the bus rolled away with the kids, or maybe the parents would go get coffee. So there's also that built-in community, right? Say a little bit more about that,
Definitely.
because you had a lot of bus friends in
Oh
your
my gosh.
neighborhood.
And that's huge too, because often, we find ourselves as parents, we're racing to get back to that bus stop.
Sure.
And sometimes I would think to myself, I am losing hours of my life in 10-minute increments because the stress is so high. I got to be at that bus stop. But in a situation where you know other people at the bus, exchange phone numbers, and you can text and say, I am 10 minutes away. Can you just send them into the yard or keep an eye on them, and
Sure.
that is huge. Or send them up on my porch, whatever it is, or keep them on your porch and I'll get them is huge. It can really be a really cool environment and community to have.
Well, and also in terms of the bus for just school safety, I know in Cincinnati we've had a number of kids be hit by cars, and it right around the school. With, I mean, these schools weren't designed, at least in our urban communities, and even some of our suburban, for the individual minivan or car drop off for hundreds of parents. And so there's a safety issue, right? The more private individual cars coming onto the campus, the more likelihood somebody's going to get hit, right?
I think, yeah, the safety issue, there's the environmental issue and the time issue that the parents put in when they're doing drop off and pickup. I mean, at the school that my office is at, we'll have parents lining up for pickup at about 2:15 and school doesn't get out until 3. So,
Right.
you want to get at the front to get the kid to leave, but
So you can get out quick.
you're sitting there for, probably 45 minutes to do that.
Idling in that car, either with the heat on in
Yes.
the winter or the air conditioning in the summer, just spewing out particulates and so forth. So,
Yes.
wow. Yeah, that's not good. So, okay, that makes sense. So, talk a little bit about those first days. How do you engage your kid? Like when they get home from the first day of school, what are some tips to really kind of bring out the positives in that experience? What do you say with that?
I know, and the kids are gonna be exhausted. I mean, it's a
Okay,
lot to kind of transition and get used to being on your best behavior now for a whole school day and keep
sure.
holding that attention span. Um, but I
So do
know
you
that
recommend when they get home like a nap, or do you recommend just kind of free play zone out, or do you think they should get on a device and just zone out on a tablet for a while? What's your recommendation?
no, I would like for the parents to actually get out a jackhammer and smash all their devices right now. And
Really?
and I would
But
join them.
But what do you say to the parents who say my electronic device for my child is educational?
I would say no, that it is
Jackhammer
doing
it?
far more harm than it is good. And jackhammer it. Or I also have a fantasy of driving around in a giant dump truck and just going house to house and people coming out with trash cans full of all their electronics and dumping it in. And I'm not
Okay.
sure where I'm gonna put it, but I'm gonna dig
Right.
a hole or whatever, find a
You're going to
storage unit,
recycle
keep
them
them all.
environmentally, right?
I'm
You're
gonna
gonna
recycle them. Yeah.
Right. Okay, good. So the devices are actually, so that's the last thing you would recommend. Let me
Yes.
shelve that for a minute. But do you recommend just a nap, free play? How do you
I mean, I would
navigate
play it
that?
by ear based on the kid. Some kids might just conk out on the way home. They might be
Okay.
tired, or as soon as they get in the house, the door, they're kind of sitting there and they're conked out, which, that's what they need. Or you might just say, let's have a little snack. Why don't we play outside, ride bikes a little bit, get the cobwebs all out, and then come in and have dinner. And I think one of the things, I can't remember who told me this or where I read it, but somebody said, we often say, how was your day? And the kid says, good. And then we say, okay, and that's it. But maybe
Right.
we could take it like somebody said, if you say, tell me your favorite part of the day, or tell
Okay.
me the funniest thing that happened today, or, something like that, which kind of can open that conversation more about the school day. That can be really
Okay.
good too.
Like almost highs and lows for the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Very nice. So let's get back to the devices. Are you seeing, because you work currently on a preschool diagnostic team, but are you seeing, I guess in my head, I'm thinking devices are usually around that 6th, 7th grade level, but are you seeing that way younger than that?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Tell me about that.
So it is not uncommon when we talk to parents, and our kids, most of the kids we're seeing are 2 years, 11 months. So they're just
Okay.
about to turn 3. And when we say, so what is, Johnny's favorite toy? And they'll say, oh, his iPad. And then we'll say, well, that, okay, I don't want to tell you that's not a toy, but what besides that is his favorite toy? And they'll say, oh, he'll play with anything. Like they really can't articulate often specific toys that they love, blocks,
Wow.
trucks, balls, dolls, kitchen
Legos.
set, Legos,
Yeah.
Climbing apparatus, whatever it is, bikes.
Yeah.
They kind of are stumped. And I think part
Okay.
of it is, they always want the iPad and that, and they'll play with anything else. But I would really love to see that change.
Okay. So what are the benefits of getting off the device and either playing with blocks or Legos or riding bikes or playing with friends in the neighborhood? Talk about that from a developmental standpoint.
So what I would
Why
like
that's better.
I am feeling this burning passion that goes beyond getting off the devices. When I think about these beautiful families that we work with, these are families with the most adorable kids, and the parents have come to us because they have concerns about their development. Sure. And so I think about, we do this and we do that. We can have speech therapy and all of this. But I think about, we're seeing so many more kids with delays than we have in the past. We're also seeing an intensity in the delays that we're seeing. So it's
they're more severe?
Much more significant. So more kids with more severe issues. And so I'm starting to think, like, what is going on? Why are we seeing this? And when I think about that, and I think about, our families often let us come into their homes, which is a huge honor. And one of the things that families really, you don't see a lot of is a kitchen table in the home.
Interesting.
And I think that, what would it be like if we said, okay, you got to get a kitchen table? And the reason why you need a kitchen table is because I think a lot of us are so busy and so stressed and so strapped for time, and myself included, we're going through those drive-throughs. So, which means the kids are often eating before you even get home. They're done with their meal. You know what I mean? They're into it. They're done. So you don't need a kitchen table, right?
Right.
But what you're missing, and especially these kids, is that it is gold to sit at a table with your parent and have a conversation. That is developmental gold. That is learning how to listen, learning how to take turns. It's working on your fine motor skills with your fork and your knife.
Sure.
It's developing manners and kind of social cueing
Sure.
about all of that kind of, it is gold. So if we could stop doing the fast food, get a kitchen table, and sit with our kids for one meal a day, I think that we could really make a huge impact.
Well, let me push you on that a little bit, though, because I've worked in both restaurants and hotels where I see families all the time for sit-down meals, and yet often I see all four of the people at the table, two kids and two parents, all on their own individual device, head down, not a word being exchanged. So it isn't enough to just get to the table, is it? We've got to put the device in the pocket or in the purse or in the car or somewhere, right?
Absolutely huge. The device cannot be, I mean, I'm really thinking that the parents need to not be on their devices around the kids. And I don't know how you do that. I don't know if you have a lockbox and you just put it in there, or I don't know what you do, but be present and
Right.
and be intentional about that. Not only that, but I think that the kids will respond. They want attention. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? You can then be present with that.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times I've observed tables where the kids actually get bored of their devices before the parents, and they're tugging on dad and like, hey, let's do this, or help me color or whatever. And the parent is just kind of like, go back to your phone or go back to your tablet, and
Right.
just ignoring them. You were recently in Croatia, though, and you experienced a little bit of something different in restaurants. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
It was awesome. So first of all, like when we were there, in a restaurant, almost every restaurant, and it was like, fast, not fast food, but like more reasonable restaurants, as well as, a little bit pricier restaurants. You could see little cafes and everything. They all had an area for kids, and it would be kind of in the common area, so you could easily see them from the tables. And it would be easels with like markers or paints and things like that for the kids to do, or little blocks and toys for them to play with. And there was always a sign, and it said something like, kids area so parents can relax. And so that was the first thing that I noticed, like, this is so cool. I didn't see one kid the entire time we were there, which was a week, on any kind of device. I never saw a child on a device, not in a restaurant, not out for a walk, not anywhere, no devices. And the second thing was, I very rarely saw adults on devices. When they were sitting at the table, even if it was with other adults, they were interacting and chatting, and the kids might run over and show them the thing they drew and then go back and play. But the devices just were not present.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and the dining in Europe tends to be more social and a much longer engagement. And some of that, depending on where you are, maybe just that you're in vacation mode or vacay mode. But I think overall, there's a more intentionality about that being an important time just in strengthening relationships versus just trying to shovel down sustenance and inhale 800 calories to
Right.
do the next thing. I also wanted to throw in there that I think more and more workplaces are encroaching on parents' time. So the expectation is if somebody at work sends you a text or an email at 7 at night, you better respond, or you better at least know enough to be working on it that night so you can present something the next morning in a 8 a.m. meeting, let's say. So
Right.
I think parents also have to set boundaries with their employers to not let work encroach on that family time. And I know that's hard. I've certainly been in a lot of jobs where it's just nonstop, unrelenting 24/7, but that's not good for your family or the parent either, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, not only have we talked about the bus and we've talked about devices, what about the walking bus? And that's getting more popular, where kids are, you want to share a little bit about what the walking bus is?
Yes. So I know where our kids went to school, there was always a walking bus where parents would kind of organize and take turns kind of collecting kids on a route and bringing them to school. And that was
That were in
awesome.
near proximity to the school, right? So
Right.
in
So
the
they were all
immediate
walkers,
streets.
you know what I mean,
Okay.
within a
Sure.
mile of the school. And that was cool because the parents, when it was their turn, got to know all the kids on the route in the neighborhood
Sure.
and things like that. And also for the kids, to get to know the other kids in the neighborhood and develop friendships. And then when you're not doing it, you save that time for yourself. You know what I mean? Because they're safe and getting to
Sure.
school. Great.
Wow. What about parental involvement in the school? I know depending on like if your kid's in junior high, they probably don't want you super involved in the school, but generally, do you see positive benefits or negative, you know, consequences of parents getting involved either as a room parent or coaching a team or helping with the theater? Or say a little bit about that parental involvement and how that impacts the school community as a whole and enhances it.
I mean, I think that you can't be involved enough. The schools need that and want the involvement and the help. There are PTOs, there are room parents, like you said, and then there's the, volunteering to read with the kids. There's
Okay.
volunteering to go on a field trip and all of those things in between. I think whatever you can do is invaluable.
Nice. All right.
One thing
Let's talk.
I was
Go
going to
ahead.
say, so I have two people on my team, which I can't say enough about, Laurie Owens and Kathy Morris, and they're just incredible teammates and people. We're kind of like, I don't know if you watched Dukes of Hazzard, but we would be like Luke and Bo, and I guess I would be Uncle Jesse, but you know what I mean? Like
You're
we
not
kind of go
Daisy?
together. I wouldn't say I'm Daisy. I wasn't going to say that. I said Uncle Jesse.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't have
So,
pegged you for an Uncle Jesse, but if
yeah,
you want
and
to self-identify as Uncle Jesse, then I'm
I will.
certainly not going to stand in your way. So
But
continue, Uncle Jesse.
so one of them was telling me that at the school her kids went to, when it was time to volunteer, they would open up lists, and it was
Okay.
almost a foot race among her peers to get there, to get
Nice.
on these lists to volunteer. And she was a working parent, so you know what I mean? Like, but they all
Yeah.
wanted to do it. Well, one of her, friends has younger children who are at the same school now. And she said, the parents have disappeared.
Huh.
She said, we're on every committee. We're coaching every team. Even we don't even have a daughter playing softball, and we're coaching the softball team because they needed a coach.
Wow.
And I don't know what that is. I think it's, again, a wake-up call. Let's get it together, folks. We can do better.
Yeah. Well, and I also think it's a symptom of work continuing to encroach beyond the
Yes.
normal predictable times. And so even the fact that you don't know if your boss is going to make you stay late or expect you to stay late. And so therefore you don't want to
Right.
sign up for that after school coaching gig or what have you.
Yes.
So yeah, that's tough. You've also worked with the older kids. And I know sometimes we put a lot of emphasis on younger kids and that transition there. But at least for me, I found the transition between grade school and junior high, and then particularly junior high and high school, just terrified me. And that whole summer, I was just tied in knots, like this whole thing with all the schools feeding in to one, several thousand student school and changing classes every period and all that went into that. So say a little bit about how you help the older kids, because a lot of them won't verbalize it as they get to junior high or even high school or even going to college. So how do you help those older kids transition into the next educational front for them?
Definitely. And again, I think a lot of the schools hold walk the schedule nights. So the kids all have their schedule. They've, got that down. And then you can go and they'll kind of give you the time period that you would have to get to that class. And it never seems like it's going to be enough, but there's plenty of time, and so it's very reassuring, comforting to do that. Even some of the schools, I know Walnut Hills, they'll do ice cream socials for incoming seventh graders, and they might meet in different areas of the city to kind of get those kids together. So if it's a West Side UDF or wherever it is, they'll do that to just get the kids.
So really
kinda-
take advantage of anything pre-actual going to
Definitely. And then
school.
the
Okay.
sports, especially in the fall, that can really help you too, or the band. If you can get involved in some of those things, it can
Sure.
help because you might have a few friends before you even start school if it's a new
Yeah.
school to you.
Well, and a lot of schools I know sports are hyper competitive, and we could do a whole podcast on youth sports and the monetization of that. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of schools that have no cut sports. So I know like cross country was one of them at our kids' school. And that was a way where even if you were a terrible runner or maybe couldn't even run at all, you could still be a part of that and kind of get a group of friends right off the bat. So that's good advice.
Definitely.
Yeah. Good. Well, this has been very helpful. So I know you are available for private services. If a family is having troubles or needs some help, what would you say to them in terms of your
So I
services?
would love to work with families and
Okay.
kids in helping them deal with school anxiety or social anxiety or getting behaviors related to often anxiety and things like that. Get a plan together to help improve those kinds of things, as well as social skill development. I am so thinking that this is a huge thing that we can do to help the kids in terms of
Sure.
developing those skills. So I would love
Nice.
to work with as many kids as need it.
Well, and you mentioned the growing need for kids on the spectrum, and you are a specialist in that. So families where maybe they have some special children that need just some extra care, you're happy to help both
Oh,
kind of on the home
definitely.
front and the school front. Is that right?
Absolutely. And because I've been doing this for so long, I know the improvements kids make. And I often will tell parents who are really kind of feeling rock bottom about where they're at, I'll say, listen, it was not uncommon for me to be sitting in basketball game in 7th grade, meeting a new parent and them saying like, "Oh, he's on the spectrum," and I would have no idea. My
That's
child would have
exciting.
mentioned his name, would have been on the team with him, and that never came up. And so I think that there are so many things that we can do now that just get that ball rolling and really help the families get the kids where they need to be and reach their potential.
Awesome. Well, this has been really fun. If any of our listeners today want to reach out to Kristen, you can just click on the book a consultation, but just put a note that you want to talk to Kristen and not myself or any of our other team members. And Kristen would be happy to talk with you, give you some free advice, and then see where she could give you some services. So thank you. And I
Definitely.
wish you and your team the best of luck in
Thank
this new
you.
school year, as well as a parent. Good luck with that as well.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today on the Super Pumped podcast. If you enjoyed today's show as much as I did, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app and tell your friends about the show so others can find and benefit from the Super Pumped community. And finally, to put the ideas from today's show into action, visit us at superpump.com to view the show notes, book a complimentary consultation, or take our free business launch readiness assessment. Keep well, and I'll see you next time.